Welcome in, everybody, to Fantasy Pros. This is the Fantasy Football Podcast. It is me, Joey P, Joe Pisapia, and it's week 4 in the NFL, so it's time to hit the waiver wire. What a fun and wild week 3 it was. Upsets galore, rebirths of careers, some fantasy assets possibly going south. The first round looking rough right about now, but don't worry, everybody. Don't despair, because Derek Brown, DBro, the King of Bros, and Pat Fitzmaurice, my patty cakes, are here with me to get you the right players to help you keep on keeping on for the entire NFL season. And just going back to yesterday real quick before we turn the page, Pat, I guess it turns out Bryce Young really was the problem after all. How about them Panthers?
Unbelievable. Nice to see Carolina get their first win. But Andy Dalton, the hero we all needed. Who could have imagined that coming out of week 3 of the most valuable quarterbacks for the week would be Andy Dalton, Malik Willis, Sam Darnold. Yeah. Didn't have that on my bingo card for the 2024 NFL season.
Superflex League waiver wire gems for 1,000, Alex. I mean, what a crazy weekend of football. I had to explain the legend of Andy Dalton to my daughter who was watching the game. She goes, "Who's playing quarterback for the Panthers? Who is this guy? It's not Bryce Young." And I said, "That, my friend, is Andy Dalton. Once upon a time, he was the quarterback for the Cincinnati Bengals. He was the Red Rifle." And she was like, "What?" And the whole legend. It was an amazing teachable moment yesterday. Speaking of teachable moments and Sam Darnold, I'm wearing my Vikings shirt today just to upset Pat. DBro, how about them Vikings? Another big W. I know Pat is not happy about it. He saw me and cursed me out this morning as soon as he came on camera with me. But another incredible performance, for the Minnesota Vikings, a huge win for them against the Texans yesterday.
This is just a continuing theme of this show. We were talking about this before we turned the mics on. Amazing, guys, that scheme and situation matter. Like, how many retread quarterbacks are playing well? You talked about Dalton, Malik Willis, Sam Darnold, Justin Fields. All these guys that everybody was like, "Oh, they're terrible. They shouldn't even be in the league. Oh, no, they're not even NFL quarterbacks." And they're playing really good football right now. And Sammy Darnold, we're going to talk about him later on the show today, tossing 4 touchdowns, making the Houston Texans and Bobby Slowick look like they just learned what football is.
Yeah.
Oof, man.
And there was another guy who is our waiver wire pick of the week we're going to get to in a second, who had himself a day or maybe a month. I don't know. It was unbelievable. Before we get to the waiver wire pick of the week, I want to give out some free stuff here on the show. Trophy Smack 6-pound custom championship belt. It's gone. We've given it away. The grand champion is Ryko Raekwon. I know Ryko. I've seen you, Ryko, on the streams many times. So congratulations. I'm very glad that it went to you. So Ryko Raekwon, the last surviving member of the Wu-Tang Clan. I don't know. But anyway, Raekwon, you are the guy here who is out there who's going to get this belt. So hit us up, mailbag@fantasypros.com with your mailing address and proof of your subscription to the Fantasy Pros YouTube channel, and we'll get that out to you right away. Again, Ryko Raekwon, congrats, you're the big winner. Now we gave something away. That means we got to give something new away. And this week we're giving away Trophy Smack's Stunner ring and display case along with it. So you get not only the ring, but the display case. I like the rings too. They don't take up as much space sometimes. I got all these belts and, running out of real estate, DBro, for all these belts. But the rings are nice, baby. And you get the personalized ring and display case thanks to our good friends over at Trophy Smack. You can show everybody about what it's like to be the bling king in your fantasy league and take your fantasy football experience to the next level by designing your own display case, complete with custom commemorative metal plaque. Ooh-wee, that sounds pretty good. So if you want to enter, all you have to do is subscribe to the Fantasy Pros YouTube channel, drop a comment below, and ring the bell till it goes ding. That's it. That's all you got to do, and we'll announce the winner right here on the show. So again, subscribe, drop the comment, ring the bell, and this stunner ring and display case can be yours from Trophy Smack. All right, it's time to get to the waiver wire pickup of the week, and what a day it was for Jauan Jennings. Ooh-wee, 11 receptions, 12 targets, 175 yards, and not one, not two, but 3 tutties for Jauan Jennings. I had him in a lot of DFS lineups, DBro. It was a good day in that sense. He carried some that were pretty lame, but he's only 43% rostered. This was a player, with the Deebo Samuel injury cropped up, when the George Kittle injury cropped up. It just felt like things were going to push more and more towards Jennings. And my goodness, did they ever. Brock Purdy showed you in the playoffs, in the Super Bowl last year. He was very comfortable finding Jennings in big spots. So, DBro, how aggressive are we on Jennings, knowing that at some point in time, he might go back to being that guy in the depth chart that's a little bit lower on the trough?
Well, I mean, let's keep it a buck here, guys. A little bit disappointing because Jennings had the big day, but we didn't see any passing touchdowns like the Super Bowl, so we got to nerf him a little bit because of that. But no, seriously, man. I mean, just a monster day for Jauan Jennings. I mean, I think looking at a 6 to 8% bid, I'm not going to go over the moon. Like, I think that you're going to have to be aggressive in some spots if you really want him and push that to 10 or 12% of your fab. But for me, I'm going to preach just a little bit more sanity with it, like 6 to 8%, only because we do know George Kittle's going to come back. Brandon Ayuk is going to look better, and we're going to get Deebo Samuel back. Now, the question is when for all of those guys. So I get if you want Jauan Jennings, and the upcoming matchups are really good. I mean, these next 2 weeks, he gets the Patriots and the Cardinals. So we're not going to be expecting 175 receiving yards, but can he be a strong wide receiver 3? Can he be a very strong flex play moving forward until all of those guys are back? Yes. So in a lot of spots, I'm probably not going to get Jennings, but I think the bids are about right. I mean, what do you think, Pat? I mean, is that not enough to get him on your team?
And Pat, also to that point, I mean, some of this circumstantial too, where let's say you are an 0-3 team and you need some sort of spark of life here offensively. Is it okay to just overbid a little on Jennings and try to get right and try to help, maybe he can help get you some W's in the next 2 weeks? Like, is so much of Jennings circumstantial depending on your fantasy record?
Yeah, circumstances do matter for sure, and what your record is and what your situation is, because DBro makes a good point. We might only get another week, maybe 2 weeks, where we're comfortable putting Jennings in our starting lineup because we lose that comfort level once Brandon Ayuk and or George Kittle are back. But yeah, I mean, it was fun to see him erupt like this, and we have to assume that as long as it's just basically Brandon Ayuk and Jauan Jennings is the only viable targets in this offense, that it's going to continue to look good. The 49ers gave Jauan Jennings a $15 million contract extension in the spring with more than $8 million in guaranteed money. Like, they know he's more than just a spare part, and that if they need him to step up, he can do it. They needed him to step up this week, and 175 yards and 3 touchdowns later, here we are talking about how much to bid on Jauan Jennings in waivers this week.
Yeah, look, a tremendous performance from Jennings. There's no doubt about that. And who knows? I mean, look, it's been a wild first couple weeks of the NFL. Jennings looks like a player who can at least help you in the short term. So I would gauge your bids, everybody, on Jennings based upon your desperation right now. If you have a great team, maybe you don't go crazy for it, but maybe if you are struggling right now, maybe you just, I don't know why I empty the clip. We're not there. But maybe you're aggressive and trying to get that spark into your lineup. I understand right now we're kind of in that spot where you don't want to turn the page into October and get too far behind.
Well, Joey, the other part that I'll mention too here is if we get a 2-week window of viability, bye weeks start at week 5. So some of this could be the complexion of your team. If you got a lot of players on bye for week 5, then maybe also that throws a little bit of extra sauce on top to bid a little bit more aggressively because you know your team might be hurting in week 5 too.
Teams on byes week 5, Detroit Lions, Chargers, Eagles, Titans. So you're going to miss the Amon-Ra's, the Williams. You're going to miss, I mean, the Charger wide receivers right now. I mean, although Quentin Johnson did have another touchdown. It was unbelievable. A.J. Brown's been out. Devonta Smith's been out. So that's perfect timing for the Eagles, boy. They could not ask for a bye at a better time than what they've got it. But again, check your rosters and see what's going on there. Let's get to the running backs, gentlemen. Before we do, I want to remind everybody a great way to make money on your fantasy is to invest over on DraftKings in props like touchdowns. And if you haven't already, it's a great opportunity to go ahead and look at the guys that you think are going to score in whatever week we are in the NFL and go, test the waters a little bit. If it's on the ground or in the air from special teams or defense, we don't care how they score. We just want touchdowns. And DraftKings Sportsbook is delivering some of the best touchdown prop numbers out there. And they're an official sports book partner of the NFL. So if you haven't tried it yet, we urge you to go give it a shot. Follow us over on Betting Pros. Use the Betting Pros app too. Watch all the shows there. I gave you the Minnesota Vikings as my upset special this week. Ka-ching, we did that. So we want to do that with you. And the way you score big with DraftKings Sportsbook, the number one place to bet touchdowns is to download the DraftKings Sportsbook app right now. Use that promo code FantasyPros. Again, that's promo code FantasyPros, and new customers get 200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5 only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. All right, let's get to those RBs, gentlemen, and let's start with Braelon Allen. That's the guy that I want to talk about because all of a sudden, it's not just a one-off. Last week, I feel like maybe we were a little dismissive of what we saw, think, oh, it was against the Titans. It was trying to get Braelon Allen some work. Just 20 years old, youngest guy in the NFL right now. And he looked great against the Patriots running the football. And he definitely started to work into the share of carries for one Breece Hall. So there's a lot of weird emotions going on when we're talking about that Jets backfield right now. Pat, I know last week we were a little kind of, well, let's push it to the side. It's a one-off, but 11 carries later, 55 yards, and 3 receptions, too. He finishes RB26 right now before the Monday night games play. What's your takeaway on Braelon Allen, a guy who right now is rostered in just 46% of leagues, but certainly looks like not only one of the highest handcuffs you could have, but maybe potentially a guy who could be a flex player for you the rest of the season? What do you see in Braelon Allen when you look into the future, Pat?
Braelon Allen has looked so fantastic so far.
He did.
Joe. He looks better than he looked at Wisconsin in college, and he looks a lot faster than he looked at Wisconsin. And Braelon Allen's usage has crept up in the last couple of weeks. He had 1 rushing attempt in week 1, 7 in week 2, 11 carries in week 3, even had 3 catches in week 3. And Allen was not very effective as a pass catcher in college. The last 2 weeks, Allen has been getting basically a third of the snaps, close to a third. And it helps that the Jets have been in these positive or neutral game scripts. Like they played a close game in week 2. They had things go their way in week 3. That keeps them in running shape. And man, I wasn't sure what to expect of the Breece Hall usage because we saw the Jets work Breece Hall hard down the stretch last year, even though things were hopeless. They were probably a little reckless with the usage last year, but it seems like they've got sort of a Breece Hall management plan this year. Braelon Allen is a big part of that. On one hand, Braelon Allen is really good, but I don't know if we are quite to the point where Breece Hall has standalone value. Like he's on the cusp of it, but still he is like just this super high end handcuff right now. I'm not sure what's that worth. I know it's looked so good that people are going to want to splurge on him, thinking that, this guy who looks like a younger, faster version of Derrick Henry. And by the way, Braelon Allen is the youngest player in the National Football League.
Yeah, I mentioned that, 20 years old.
Yeah, he's got a bright future ahead of him. But I would say practice discipline when putting your bids on him this week because he is not a guy you can comfortably start yet, short of a Breece Hall injury.
So far, averaging 9.7 half PPR points a game, 29 fantasy points cumulative right now on the board. Again, before Monday night's game play, he is 26th overall in half PPR RB productivity and fantasy points. So interesting note there. He does look great. He's passing the eye test. Pat makes some good points about, look, it's probably more about management of Breece Hall as the season goes on than it is necessarily about Braelon Allen. But in an offense that, doesn't jump off the page outside of Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall, what do you see here in the future for Braelon Allen? And if you have Breece Hall, how important might it be for you to make sure that you have Allen in that bench of yours?
I think I'm going to give Braelon Allen a little bit more standalone value here than Pat is. Look at what his role has looked like over the last 2 weeks. Almost 12 touches per game, 62 total yards. And I know that they face the Vikings, but outside of that, you get the Broncos, the Vikings, the Bills, the Steelers, the Patriots, Texans, Cardinals over the next few weeks. So a lot of neutral game scripts and maybe some more positive game scripts for Braelon Allen. I think 7 to 8% of your fab is probably about right. If you have Breece on your team, then you kick that up to probably about 12 to 13%. Because, guys, the Braelon Allen right now amongst 41 qualifying running backs, 7th in missed tackles forced per attempt, 4th in yards after contact per attempt. Like, can we not say that if anything happened to Breece Hall, Braelon Allen would be Jordan Mason? Like, he would be a lock set, forget it,
that's my point
RB1?
about it. See, that's my point about it is and of course we don't wish injury here on anybody, but we're talking about
they happen.
The nature of the beast this year and the last couple of years has really kind of kicked us right in between. And I don't know if I feel comfortable if I have Breece Hall not having Braelon Allen on my roster at this point. Like if someone else has him in my league, I might want to strike a deal there and say, learn a lesson from the CMC Jordan Mason situation and want that guy because frankly, I see those same things. He does look better than in college, Pat. I'm glad you brought that up.
Way better.
He's better. And he's such a young man. Like he could even continue to hit new levels. So it's a special moment to watch this right now. And if it turns out being a thing where the Jets are just going to run the hell out of the football and utilize his running backs and play to what strengths Rodgers has left at this point in his career, I do think there could be some more standalone value for Allen too. Maybe a little bit more than Pat does. It might be a little bit more towards DBro. I want to talk about another running back here. This guy from Tampa, Bucky Irving, is the guy to next discuss here. Now, he led the team in rushing on Sunday, 70 yards, 9 carries. It was a loss. They kind of got away from the run. He also had 3 catches on 3 targets. So takeaways here between what you saw or haven't seen out of Rachaad White this season and what you saw out of Bucky Irving yesterday. Is there a changeover happening in front of our eyes in this Tampa Bay Buccaneers backfield, DBro?
I don't think it's a changeover in that I think Rachaad White is still the clear running back or RB1 on this depth chart. But also, let's give a little more respect to Bucky Irving. He has led the Buccaneers in rushing in 2 of the first 3 games. And we're looking at a similar role as to what Braelon Allen is doing for the Jets. Bucky Irving, weeks 1, weeks 3, he's averaged 11.5 touches. He's eclipsed 75 total yards in both of those games. Last week, I was very interested. The big thing about Bucky Irving's usage that stood out to me is that he got 6 out of the 10 snaps in the 2-minute drill. Wouldn't we all kind of think that all of that work would go to Rachaad White considering his pass game role, but it went to Bucky Irving. So while I don't think that he has truly made this a 50-50 split, although when you look at the box scores, you can make the case for that, I won't be surprised if that is the case in 3 weeks down the road, where this has become a 50-50 backfield and Bucky Irving is outplaying Rachaad White. This has always been the case against Rachaad White. And everybody said, like, last year it burned me. Last year it burned me because I was like, look, his efficiency numbers aren't great. He's getting all the work. That's great. That's wonderful. Volume is king and all of that stuff. But this year, that's why I was like, look, like the thing about running back is if you continue to not play great and somebody else steps up on a depth chart, this is where you see that type of stranglehold on snaps, that type of, oh, you used to be a bell cow and now you're not because you don't do enough with the touches that you're given. This is how you see backfields kind of evolve over the course of a season. Bowles was talking about this in the offseason. He was talking about, we need more out of a running game. And at the time, I was very much on like, okay, well, you still do understand the offensive line is not great, okay? So we can only put so much at the feet of Rachaad White. But this season, Bucky Irving's running behind the same exact offensive line as Rachaad White, and he's outproducing him at every single step. So while I think that he's more of a high-end handcuff, low-end kind of RB3/flex play right now, I won't be surprised if we're 3 weeks down the road and it's the middle of the season and Bucky Irving is getting more of the high leverage opportunities. This is a true committee, and maybe Bucky Irving takes the lead down the stretch.
Well, the tough part with committees, Pat, is that sometimes there's no winner. And I'll be the first one to take the L. I took a lot of Rachaad White because I didn't see Bucky Irving as necessarily a threat. I thought the offense would be good enough to carry some of the inefficiencies over year to year, and all the passing game equity that Rachaad White brought last year would, again, carry him through in PPR leagues. So far, that has not been the case. I know health has been an issue too, so I don't want to dismiss that. He hasn't been healthy. But at the same time, this Bucky Irving performance was eye-opening with totals. So how do we approach Bucky Irving from a fantasy standpoint on waiver wire this week, Pat?
It is. And by the way, Bucky Irving sort of reminds me of Kyron Williams as a guy who had his pockets of support going into the combine. And then the combine numbers were not what we wanted to see. And a lot of people maybe kind of wrote him off a little bit. But so, yeah, I don't know if a backfield takeover is imminent here, Joe, but I almost think Bucky Irving, even though I don't think he's quite as good a player as Braelon Allen is, I think he might be closer to standalone value. And we did see Rachaad White outsnap Bucky Irving 42-18 in week 3. That's significant advantage. But in the 18 snaps Bucky Irving had, he had 9 carries, ran 7 routes, and had 3 targets. So he was a busy man when he was in there. And that's the thing. Like when Bucky Irving is in the game, he is heavily involved. He has gotten a carry or a catch on 54.5% of his snaps this year. So when Bucky Irving's in the game, he's getting the ball. Buccaneers offensive coordinator Liam Cohen seems to want the ball in Bucky's hands. And Rachaad White is averaging 2.1 yards per carry and just clearly is not a good inside runner. So I wouldn't be surprised if we did start to see Bucky Irving's snap counts rise a little bit and he gets to the point where he is at least flex worthy.
All right. I want to talk about Cam Akers, a guy that was added a lot over the week, when we got the news about Joe Mixon and then Dameon Pierce, and all of a sudden there was no running backs left when it came to the Houston Texans, 58% rostered. So I don't want to spend too much time because he is rostered in more than half of leagues already. But Pat, Cam Akers, if he's still floating out there, what's your take on him? Is that somebody you should be adding going into week 4?
Yeah, we need to get more info on the Joe Mixon injury and his progress and what it is. And Dameon Pierce maybe comes back and cuts into Cam Akers' value a little bit. But I mean, the nice thing was if you had Cam Akers in week 3, he was the only game in town in the Texans backfield. So if we know it's going to be that again in week 4, yeah, I mean, he's someone who should be added and probably started.
Hard part is we might not have that answer by the time we get to Wednesday, where a lot of waivers go. So going to be very tricky. If you've got Mixon, this is a little bit more of a priority. If you have Mixon, chances are you already have Akers or you went out and made that move. And if you didn't and he's still floating out there, you probably should. DBro, let's get an update real quick for everybody too in the waiver wire world of the Kansas City Chiefs backfield. Got to see what that looks like first take without Isaiah Pacheco, Carson Steele, Samaje Perine, maybe at some point Kareem Hunt and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Any update on that from you in terms of approach on the waiver wire for those guys?
I mean, it was Carson Steele's show, man. You look at the usage he got last night. He got the goal line usage. He got 18 touches and almost 80 total yards. A little bit banged up, but this is the kind of stat lines that we kind of talked about going into last week with Carson Steele. He's going to get the early down work, probably gets the goal line work. And right now, I mean, there's nothing that he showed against the Falcons that didn't show to me that he's going to be their number 1 ball carrier moving forward. I don't think Kareem Hunt has anything left in the tank. We don't know when CEH is coming back. And Samaje Perine showed that he's still has always been just a guy.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, let's talk about guys maybe to drop at the running back position. Dare I say at this point, after 3 carries for 6 yards yesterday, Ezekiel Elliott, DBro, is it time we could drop him?
Yes, it is time. And the thing that I want to point out with that usage is Rico Dowdle took over the backfield last week. You look at now, did he play the overwhelming amount of snaps? No.
Well, game script wasn't exactly in their favor either. They were behind in that game against the Ravens.
True, but 37 snaps versus Ezekiel Elliott's 15, and then running 18 routes versus Ezekiel's 8. I think this is Rico's backfield, and he gets more of it moving forward. We talked about this last week, boys. So, yeah, Zeke, bye-bye, gone.
Yeah, we were ahead of that curve. We were all on Rico Dowdle last week. Hopefully you listened because now you saved yourself some money. Pat, it's funny because last week it looked like D'Onta Foreman was the guy in the backfield for the Browns. And against the Giants, 2 carries for 5 yards. So are we dropping Foreman back in? Is that just a 1-week wonder situation? What's happening in Cleveland?
Yeah, not a lot of snaps for D'Onta Foreman in week 3. It's been kind of yo-yo usage for him for sure. And even if he is getting a lot of snaps, he has no value as a pass catcher whatsoever. He needs carry volume to go over. And he's only had carry volume in 1 of their 3 games. You just can't count on him. I think you can drop him.
All right, there you have it, everybody. Let's get to the wide receivers before we go and do that. Look, the only thing better than the NFL on TV is the NFL in person and being able to be there live. And the only way to do that is you can get tickets to the game. And a great way to get tickets for the game, of course, is using the Game Time app. And it doesn't matter if it's football, if it's basketball, if it's hockey, baseball, forget it. You name it, they've got it. All the sports, plus concerts, comedy shows, theater events. They've got everything over on Game Time. And we're coming up on the holidays. It's a great time of year to be thinking about buying people experiences in your loved one's sphere instead of just buying them stuff. Take them somewhere. Take them to an event. And a great way to do that, again, use that Game Time app because They have all of the cool features in there. You can see your seats, get a panoramic view from your seat and the app right there before you buy. Game Time will also credit you 110% of the difference if you find a lower price ticket somewhere else. And they cover the tickets as well with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Ticketing is hard. It's a hard thing. You have to pay a lot of fees and a lot of nonsense. Game Time kind of takes all that out of it, makes it simple, makes it easy, and makes it easy for you to make sure you are at all those events. So use Game Time today. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use that promo code FantasyPros for $20 off your first purchase. Again, terms apply. Create an account and redeem the promo code FantasyPros, FANTASYPROS, for $20 off your first order right now. Download the Game Time app today. What time is it? It's game time. It's also time to look at wide receivers. Let's start with a Packer. Let's put Pat in a good mood here. Romeo Doubs. There we go, Pat. So I don't know where we're at with Jordan Love, where things are going. Hopefully sooner than later, because it seems like the health is going in a right direction. He's pushing things hard. But Romeo Doubs' performance yesterday, he is already 60% rostered, so I don't know how much he's out there. But if people have gotten disenfranchised with Christian Watson, with Doubs, with Reed, with any of these guys in the last couple of weeks and made panic moves, this is a great time, I feel like, to be acquiring Packers wide receivers for the future. Mm-hmm. Would you agree?
I think so, Joe. Probably pretty likely that we do see Jordan Love in week 4. The Packers have a big game against the hated Minnesota Vikings, whose colors you're wearing today, Joe. And I feel like we might be, it might take one injury to another Green Bay receiver for Romeo Doubs to be someone you're comfortable putting in your starting lineup. I don't know if he's sort of just outside the realm of startability in most leagues, I think. But being tied to a really good quarterback in a really high-flying offense that, has been playing really well even without Jordan Love, that's an appealing thing. And so, yeah, like right now we're looking at a lot of plebeians at wide receiver on the waiver wire right now.
Wow.
So there's not much appealing here. I mean, I think after Juwan Jennings, Doubs would probably be one of my preferred ads at wide receiver.
All right, let's talk about a Bear now. DBro, or first I think a former Bear, I should say, and now Atlanta Falcon, Darnell Mooney, who was one of my favorite guys to pick up in late drafts. We did so many mock drafts on this channel, and I found myself at the end, it's like, just give me a share of Darnell Mooney. Let's see what happens there. Mooney last night for the Falcons, another great performance. I think one where we saw the Philadelphia thing, we saw a couple of the big plays and went, okay, that's cute. Yeah, the big touchdown. Okay, fun. And then last night, 8 targets, 8 receptions, 66 yards. Now, he didn't have a touchdown there, but man, that's a pretty good day at the office in PPR leagues. So they've got New Orleans, then Tampa, Carolina, Seattle coming up on the schedule here. Mooney is somebody who is only 43% rostered. It's funny, I still think of him as a Bear in my head because of all those years of wishing he could be better in an offense that was so underwhelming. Well, now he's got a passing quarterback with the Falcons. So has the calculus changed here with Mooney? Is he a wide receiver 3 in fantasy? Is he just a bye-week bench guy? How do you see him? How do you approach Mooney in week 4 on the waiver wire?
I think he's right on the cusp of wide receiver 3/4 territory, which is going to put him right in the crosshairs of your flex plays, especially with bye weeks coming up, people. You need to start looking at all these guys, all these wide receivers we're going to talk about here that are out there that are putting up these type of like low-key wide receiver 3 numbers. I mean, yeah, Mooney over the last 2 weeks, guys, has averaged 7.5 targets and 77 receiving yards. You throw a touchdown on top of any type of work like that, and you're talking wide receiver 2 numbers for a week and not wide receiver 3/4. So New Orleans is a tough matchup, and you talked about it, Joe. Tampa Bay, Carolina, not worried about those secondaries again. So then bye week start, and you're looking at Mooney, and you're saying, okay, makes a lot of sense. Going to put him into my lineup. So 5% or 6% of your fab, I think, is perfectly fine for Darnell Mooney. And another thing I want to throw out there, because after one game of football this year, we were all willing to just toss Kirk Cousins into the dumpster and say he is done. He has looked good over the last 2 weeks.
No.
Aaron Rodgers and Cousins, the Achilles brothers, have looked good under center over the last 2 weeks. So we need to give a little more respect to their pass game weapons.
Look, I had more concerns about Rodgers because of his age, and he showed decline before the injury. Cousins wasn't showing any decline. He was still great. He just needs more time with the weapons in the offense and getting back on track. You can see that second half of that Eagles game, things clicked, and it was going to start being better from then on. Pat, any thoughts on Mooney before we move on to the next one, or you want to move on to the next guy on the list?
Yeah, I mean, one thing, I'm a little worried that it doesn't seem like Cousins is able to throw deep anymore. Like, I don't know if it seems like the Achilles might be kind of hindering his ability to step into deep throws. So I don't know if Mooney is going to get any of those like high value, fly pattern targets we'd like to see, but still, they're getting him involved in the intermediate game, which is a good thing. So, I think DBro's assessment was pretty spot on.
Is that a weird way of saying Kirk Cousins' Achilles heel is his Achilles heel? Is that what you're trying to say?
Kirk Cousins is his own Achilles heel. Throwing short of the sticks on 3rd and long is Kirk Cousins' Achilles heel, John.
I mean,
look, he got hosed on that last play. That was absolutely a pass interference. I'm sorry. Like, that's, they got away with one there. Yeah. That was a bad one.
We could talk about that for days. Flags that should have been thrown. Unfortunately, they face the Chiefs, so it's not going to happen. So.
All right, I want to throw a flag on this one because this one just pisses me right off. Pop Douglas, Demario, it does. It pisses me off. Yeah. He is 14% rostered, and another guy that, like Mooney, I'm taking shots on wide receivers late, seeing if somebody kind of emerges as a guy that I could throw in there on bye weeks or whatever. 1 fantasy point in 2 weeks. I dropped him everywhere. Then he goes and decides to have a 9-target, 7-catch, 69-yard performance there. And he had a rush for 9 yards too, just to really, stick my face in it. Pat, are we chasing this? I mean, the Patriots offense is far from fun. They got the 49ers, then the Dolphins and the Houston Texans coming up. What do you make of Douglas? Is that somebody to be adding, or is that just like nothing to see here? Just keep going.
Let's lump him in with Wan'Dale Robinson, Joe.
Okay.
I think DBro, when we're working on the waiver article every Sunday night, I think DBro maybe likes the itty bitty wide receivers a little more than I do. But
I like fantasy points, man.
It's fun size time. We're Halloween, they get little fun size things out. That's what those guys. They're little fun size 3
bite size candies are nice too.
John. Yeah, they're good.
Yeah, okay. Like a week from now, we will be talking about facing our first bye week. So, especially in leagues where you have to start 3 wide receivers and could flex a 4th, and especially if it's a PPR format, Wan'Dale and Demario Douglas do have value. And I think the thing about Demario Douglas that I was sort of worried about was that it seemed like it was this very hard to define amalgam at wide receiver for the Patriots. Which is a pretty limited passing game, obviously, but it was KJ Osborne, it was Demario Douglas, Jalen Polk, even Tyquan Thornton was getting thrown in there. But I think we did sort of see Demario take a step forward in week 3 as maybe the trusted go-to guy for Jacoby Brissett. I don't know what that's really worth, but might be something you're happy to have in a deep PPR league when the buys start to hit.
Makes sense to me. Wan'Dale, though, the only thing about Wan'Dale is I actually have him higher on my priority list this week. DBro, he's 34% rostered, but in PPR leagues, he's had 3 straight weeks of double-digit points. So at least he's giving you something, whereas Demario Douglas gave you nothing and then something. So Wan'Dale would be higher on my priority. Would you agree with that assessment too? They've got Dallas, Seattle, Cincinnati as the next 3 matchups for Wan'Dale.
I mean, I'll just throw it to you. I'll just frame it this way, boys.
Okay.
Target shares for Wan'Dale Robinson these last 3 weeks. 28.5%, 14.2%, and 23.5%. Which one of those stands out as the outlier for Wan'Dale Robinson? So yes, I like Wan'Dale Robinson. I'm not going to shy away from it. I like fantasy points. And Wan'Dale Robinson is getting a ton of targets, and we go back to volume as king, and it matters, man. So Wan'Dale Robinson, yes. And that 1 week he didn't get a 23% target share or higher, he scored a touchdown. So yes, he's ended up as wide receiver 3 production across the board. It is disgusting. It is the Giants. I understand this. But if you were to take the name out of it and you looked at just the box scores, Wan'Dale Robinson would not be out on waiver wires right now. If you took the name and the Giants away from this,
but should we be doing
would
that?
not be out there.
I mean, Malik Neighbors is not crushing life right now. I mean, jeez, the guy's got 30 targets in 2 weeks. I mean, we could talk all we want about how maybe it ain't pretty with Daniel Jones, but I don't care. I want points. And right now, if the Giants if they're telling you that it's Malik Neighbors and Wan'Dale's a secondary guy and we're going to run the football with Devin Singletary, well, okay. well, that's enough for me to know where the ball's going, and that's enough for me to invest in. So I'm with you. I think Wan'Dale
He shouldn't be available. He should not be available.
And the reason he is because is Daniel Jones. And if Malik Neighbors had been tied to, I don't know, Baker Mayfield this year or Jared Goff this year going in, he would have been a first-round pick. Can we agree on that? In fantasy, right? Chances are we would have had him ranked somewhere around Harrison.
Closer to Harrison, second round pick. I mean,
right around
it should never have been the big chasm that we saw between Harrison and Neighbors in drafts this year.
And it's not bad that collectively people were panicked about it, because I think they had good reason to be panicked about it, especially after week 1 watching Daniel Jones play. All it did was basically reinforce all those panic feelings about, oh my God, it's all going to go to crap. And last 2 weeks, from a fantasy perspective, at least, it has not. 3 more wide receivers I want to talk about real quick. I'm going to cluster them together because, again, I'm not sure how you value these guys. Mike Williams, we keep talking about, like, we see the slow progress getting up to speed, and we see, okay, well, if he can stay on the field, we all know Mike Williams has touchdown equity. Jalen Nailor, who has stepped into moments here for the Minnesota Vikings because of the injuries to Jordan Addison, and then Jahan Dotson, who right now with the Eagles, I mean, you're definitely going to have a missed week here for Devonta Smith. You're going to have another week probably all the way to the bye for A.J. Brown. So somebody's got to catch the football there besides Dallas Goedert. Pat, Mike Williams, Jalen Nailor, Dotson, give me your take on those guys. Williams is 32% rostered, Nailor 22, and John Dotson just 17.
I mean, I think Williams is the most intriguing talent, but maybe Allen Lazard is going to be sort of a thorn in the side of his value all season long. Like in 3 receiver sets, it's going to be Garrett Wilson, Mike Williams, Allen Lazard. And, Rodgers has a thing for Allen Lazard still. So that kind of cools my interest in Mike Williams a little bit. Nailor is intriguing, but we could see the return of Jordan Addison maybe as early as this week. And that, I think, just makes Nailor unstartable. So he might have like 1 week of value. It's just like a bare minimum bid. If you're really hurting at wide receiver and need someone for this week, maybe you throw a buck or two on him. Jahan Dotson, like, this guy just can't get involved, even with the injuries the Eagles are dealing with at receiver. And I have no more confidence in Jahan Dotson producing for me than I would in Britton Covey if I wanted to pick him up this week. I mean, he might be a better candidate for points than Jahan Dotson at this point.
He is.
It's getting rough out there at the wide receiver position. I wouldn't be shocked if they went out and signed somebody too, just to kind of get them through this week. DBro, what's your assessment of Williams, Nailor, and Dotson real quick too before we move on?
You'd have to pay me to pick up Jahan Dotson. I don't care.
But you and I all know
he doesn't earn targets. It's not good.
It's going to be very simple. A lot of the websites out there are going to generate him as one of these waiver wire ads. This is why you use things like My Playbook. You use our waiver assistant because you're using the expert consensus and you're using our takes and our waiver rankings to help you out. But we all know it's just usually that simple math where this guy's out on that team, so therefore this guy is a good ad. And it's not that simple all the time. I'd rather have Wan'Dale Robinson, for instance. So let's talk about that, D, because I think that's something people are going to be seeing and being force-fed a lot on their sites where they play, and it's not necessarily the best practice this week.
No, it's a horrible practice. Let's contextualize this for people. Jahan Dotson last week led all of Philadelphia Eagles wide receivers in snaps. So let's not get it twisted. He got 2 targets. 2. Mm-hmm. He's not drawing targets. And I'm sorry, you need those to score fantasy points. So, no, you can miss me with Jahan Dotson. I look at Jalen Nailor as he's basically your discount version of Juwan Jennings this week. He's the guy that could be the one injury away and then basically gets snuffed by the injury. But I'm going to push back the pad a little bit. I don't think we see Jordan Addison come back. He didn't even practice last week. None. Zip. Zilch. I think he's at least another week, maybe 2 away from playing. So we could, I know he's running hot with touchdowns. I get that. If you look at all the separation data, all the route win rate data, Nailor jumps off the page. I am not high on Jordan Addison, regardless, coming into this season, coming off an ankle injury. I am not high on him. Nailor is a guy where you're going to get production out of him right now until Addison comes back. And then even when Addison comes back, what have we seen out of KOC? You play good, you earn opportunities.
That's fair.
The ball finds you. Mm-hmm. So Nailor is doing that consistently. And the upcoming matchups, like the Packers, you could throw in the Packers. Sorry, Pat, but you can. And then he gets the Jets. Okay, that's not great. And then a bye week. But looking at Nailor and what he's done and continuing to stack solid week after solid week, I like Nailor here. And I'm willing to throw like 3 to 4% at him. Mike Williams, yes, I concede the points. Al Mazard is going to remain a thing. I was high on him on last week's primer. And when they face too high matchups, I'm going to remain high on Al Mazard. And it's going to be to the detriment of Mike Williams. But Mike Williams is working his way into this offense some more. So I think that he needs to be in the conversation, but Mike Williams really screams to me as a guy where you're looking at, if you're a 3-0 team after this week, if you're looking at, I'm 3-0 and I have the bench space to stash a guy that maybe I need in the middle of the season or towards the late part of the season, that's where Mike Williams makes a lot more sense. If you're like struggling or you have bye weeks coming up or you just need the freaking points and wins, that Wan'Dale is way, way above him. Jalen Nailor, way, way above Mike Williams.
Fair enough there. All right, to make room for some of these guys we want to add, we got to drop some guys. A.D. Mitchell, it's time to drop him, DBro.
Yep, gone.
All right. How about Demarcus Robinson, Pat? I'm going to ask you because I know this one hurts DBro in his soul.
I'm going to say no, Joe. He led the Rams. He led the Rams receivers in snaps and routes run yesterday, and I know he was really deathly quiet for most of that game, but he was involved at the very end when the Rams were mounting their comeback against the 49ers. He did draw some targets down the stretch, so wasn't a great overall game for Demarcus Robinson, but I still think he's kind of the de facto number one receiver for them until either Puka or Cooper Kupp get back.
I agree with Pat there. And just for everybody to be crystal clear about the usage of those guys, because I think it's important for those guys, because a lot of people are looking at them or have been looking at them on the waivers the last few weeks. Tyler Johnson and Jordan Whittington are droppable. They split the wide receiver 3 role. Tutu Atwell was right behind Robinson in terms of snaps. I think this all comes down to it's Robinson is going to be a full-time player, and then everybody else behind him, don't worry about them. Cut them, drop them to the waiver wire. Incredible upset by the Rams. It's an incredible job by them. Did you see Sean McVay go into the press conference and he just walked there and he's like, holy crap, we got to talk about it, dude. I was so happy. They had no business. As a guy who looked like he was like, I love coaching right now because of stuff like that. I would too if I was him. It was an incredible moment. That whole fade the 49ers, it seems to be working pretty good for me this year on the overall. Let's get the streamers for week 4. Let's start at QB. We'll lightning round through the quarterbacks, the tight ends, the defense, and kicker. DBro, kick us off here. Give us a quarterback to stream for week 4. Sammy Darnold. Sorry, Pat. Going against the Packers. QB4 and fantasy points per game right now. Yep, I said it. QB4 and fantasy points per game, dude. Beware, though, he is getting an MRI on his knee on Monday. Yep. So I think he's going to be okay. I mean, he looked fine the rest of the game, but yeah, I agree. I think he's going to be okay. But no, it definitely point that needs to be brought up. But like he's played so well, man. I mean, you can throw on the Packers, but you're going to get intercepted. They've already got as many interceptions as they had all of 2023, 7 right now. I don't even care. All I care about is the dropbacks and the touchdowns, baby. Throw them picks, Sammy. I don't even care. Chuck it. Let's go. All right, Pat, give me a quarterback for week 4. Joe, I so badly want to give you Justin Fields, but he played a good game in week 3. He didn't really do that much running, although he did have a touchdown run. But the one thing that concerns me, though, is how banged up the Steelers' offensive line is with Troy Fautanu, their first-round rookie on injured reserve. Isaac Seumalo is hurt. Nate Herbig. So for that reason, I think Geno Smith is the safer play in a likely shootout this week at Detroit. He's 43% rostered in Yahoo leagues. Pretty good spot for him. Don't even talk to me about Fields. I started Fields 2 weeks in a row over Carr in my Superflex league, and both weeks lost because of it. I started Carr this week, and then, because of the low total, I still won anyway with Fields on the bench, but I was so mad. I was like, I can't do this anymore. I'm losing my mind. Thank you, Lamar Jackson, for making it not matter. Thank you, Lamar. Can we go back to off-season bowl predictions for a second? Geno Smith, can we talk about that for a second? QB 12 and fantasy points per game. Hey, listen, my whole thing was I wanted to see them get a test, and I don't know if they've gotten it yet because Miami's defense is so bad. Agreed. So right now they're doing what they're supposed to do, handling their business. So good on the Seahawks. From a wagering standpoint, I'm still a little concerned about the Seahawks. I still don't know who they are, but eventually, hey man, you keep winning games, you start building confidence, things are good. Fitz, give me a tight end for week 4. What do you have?
Tucker Kraft against the Minnesota Vikings with Jordan Love likely returning, and Kraft has like flown by Luke Musgrave as the number one receiver on Green Bay.
All right. Give me a tight end DBro for week 4.
Tucker Kraft being the tight end one in Green Bay. Things you love to see, baby. Speaking of tight end ones in certain offenses, we're going to go back to Chicago, man. And look, I understand Cole Kmet might not be out there, but under 50% rostered in a lot of different leagues, we got to bring him up here. And his usage, finally, Shane Waldron got out of his own freaking way and decided to put Cole Kmet back into a full-time role. Had a 73% route share, 81% of the snaps, got 10 freaking receptions, and now he has really good matchups over the next 2 weeks. He gets the Rams and the Panthers, who are top 3, both of those teams, in fantasy points per game allowed at the tight end position. If you are hurting at tight end, heck, even if you think you got a solid option, you need to pick up Cole Kmet and be aggressive in doing so this week, because he's going to be a starter for the next 2 weeks at least for you, especially going against the Rams this week.
All right, DBro, give me a starting defense.
I'm just going to play, and I know they're not good, but I don't care. I know Will Levis is worse. I'm going to pick up the Dolphins and play the Tennessee Titans. This is the roulette. It was play everybody against Bryce Young, and now we're just like, oh, okay, well, Bryce Young got benched. What other quarterback that I can pick on until he finds the bench? And it's Will Levis. Come on down.
Pat, I love your answer to this question. What is it?
Oh, I'm on the other side of this. I want Tennessee against Miami. I mean, like, what is Miami going to have at quarterback? Like, they signed Tyler Huntley. I'm guessing we probably see Tyler Huntley, even though they only signed him a week ago.
I'm excited for that in a weird way.
Yeah, I mean, like,
weird
he is, as far as like playbook consumptions, he's probably still stuck on the table of contents right now. So it's not going to be pretty, man. Like, I would much rather have the Tennessee side of this one than the Miami side defensively.
All right, kickers. Pat, give me one.
Matt Prater against Washington. Like, he's been busy. The Arizona offense has been humming. That should be a high-scoring game.
DBro, kicker, give me one.
High total, baby. Jason Myers, Seattle going against the Lions, just playing the total.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the Week 4 Waiver Wire Ads of the Week, ranked for those of you who are still playing fantasy football with those priority waiver systems. So, DBro, run through your top 5 for me for Week 4 in the NFL.
Juwan Jennings leads the list. Cole Kmet is number 2 because the tight end position is gross. And then we're going to go to the running backs. Bucky Irving is 3, Braelon Allen 4, only because I think Bucky has the clear path to stand alone and possibly starter value in that backfield. And then Wan'Dale Robinson coming in at 5.
All right, Pat, give me your top 5 waiver wire ads for Week 4.
Juwan Jennings, clear number 1. Bucky Irving, ahead of Braelon Allen, Bucky 2, Allen 3. I just need to prove that I'm not a University of Wisconsin homer. Justin Fields, even though I feel more comfortable streaming Geno Smith this week, I'm going to put Justin Fields at number 4 because I like the way things are pointing for him. Hopefully the Steelers can get a little healthier along the offensive line. And then number 5, assuming Quentin Johnston's not still available in leagues, I'll follow DBro's lead on Cole Kmet. It was encouraging to see him finally be used clearly ahead of Gerald Everett. That's at least one thing Shane Waldron has gotten right so far, though he hasn't gotten too much right.
One thing.
There you have it, everybody. If you need more help with the waiver wire, head over to fantasypros.com. We've got all the waiver wire articles, and our ranks are up there right now. And use the waiver wire assistant on My Playbook. Again, the best suite of tools in the history of fantasy football is My Playbook. So make sure you download the app or go to fantasypros.com/myplaybook today. Sync your leagues for free and let us help you find the right players to change your fantasy football stars. Speaking of stars, look at these two guys right here. I love you guys. Great to hang out with you on the waiver wire for Week 4 in the NFL. Don't forget to drop your comments below and subscribe to the channel. That way you could win our latest Trophy Smack giveaway. That'll do it for us, but the story of the game goes on. For Pat Fitzmaurice and Derek Brown, I'm Joey P. We'll see you next time, kids.